It's like I'm playing whack-a-mole every day. You'll fix a problem and then all of a sudden something else pops up. It's endless.
A trip to New Zealand thrust this young CEO into leading one of the nation's most well-known car dealership brands. But now he's taking on the biggest challenge of his career thus far, bringing this 100-year-old group into the future. Today, I'm speaking with Robert Ourisman Jr., CEO of Ourisman Automotive Group, an 18-store outfit based out of the DC metro area. Don't forget to click subscribe so you never miss an episode. Well, before we get into the show, this episode is brought to you by Stream Companies. Stream Companies is the type of agency partner that easily becomes an extension of your team, fully engaged in the growth of your business. Their impressive team of auto industry and marketing experts dive in to understand your business needs, study the data, and provide full media strategies that leverage every channel that is right for your specific business and its goals. Stream is fully integrated, full service, and just celebrated 28 years of consecutive growth. A feat that is only possible through collaborative partnerships and exceptional customer service. From building your brand to leveraging their patented ad tech, Stream is driven to capture the attention of your shoppers and convert them into buyers. They work with some of the biggest and best dealerships in the country and serve all OEMs. To learn more, head to streamcompanies.com today, where you can book a free advertising audit. Their team will dive deep into your online presence and digital advertising to uncover all your immediate opportunities for growth. This episode is also brought to you by Impel. A word of caution to dealers: open source GPTs are conversation tools, not business solutions. If you want to embrace results, not risk, choose AI that's designed for automotive retail. With Impel AI, you can drive real results throughout the entire customer journey. From website, chat, sales, and service, Impel AI is custom built to achieve your business objectives. It features a proprietary blend of large language models, automotive optimization layers, and seamless integration with your entire tech stack. The result? Exceptional customer experiences and increased customer lifetime value, and that means more revenue and greater profitability. Embrace results, not risk, with Impel AI. See what the future of AI looks like today. Visit impel.ai or click the link in the show notes below. I was preparing for the podcast and I got super confused because you ready for this one? I'm sure you can already guess what happened. I was DMing apparently with, is it your cousin, Chris?
Yes.
All right, so there we go. So I'm DMing with Chris, and I'm like, wait, what is going on here? And I realized, I'm like, what the? There's two different Ourismans, and I had no idea. And so I'm dying here. I like 20 minutes before the podcast, it finally hit me because I was looking through my DMs. And anyways, long story short, this whole thing just happened. So funny stuff. And I want to ask you a lot more about this. But from what I understood, is you and Chris are cousins. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And there's actually three sides to Ourisman, so it gets more confusing. And if it's confusing for you, imagine people in the DMV, the DC metro area, and customers, and I think it's even confusing for those inside each circle. It's not quite clear to anyone, I don't think. But
I think this is an important topic, which I didn't even plan on starting with this, but I think about the family dynamic here, right? So you are clearly a massive dealer group here in DC, Maryland, metro area. We'll talk more about numbers there and whatnot. But give us a little background onto the family dynamic of this dealer group. And I want to double click on this confusion that you're talking about. What this really means.
Yeah, it'd actually be good to talk this out, I think. So I'm fourth generation, right? So my great grandfather started the business in 1921. In H Street, Washington, D.C., Northeast, the Chevrolet store. My grandfather took it over after my great-grandfather passed away, and he moved it out to Marlow Heights, Maryland. Again, single Chevrolet store. I guess that was in the 50s. And so that's, second generation. And there was, so grandfather had three sons who were, two sons and a stepson in the business. And that represented Gen 3. And I would suggest that's a lot of cooks in one kitchen. And, what was a highly successful single store group and dealership, it was for a handful of years the number one dealership in the country. Eventually, dad and two brothers expanded, sort of got the tentacles out of the single store. And through Gen 3, sort of it grew through Maryland and Virginia. And now I'm Gen 4, and I have other cousins who are involved in the business as well. And so we operate sort of under, the Ourisman Automotive Group is sort of an umbrella term for who we are. But there's three, I call them pods within the actual Ourisman name, and different businesses, different operators, same name, but different styles, different philosophies. And so it sort of creates it's confusing, but, we've sort of, even on my group, we've rebranded ourselves to Ourisman Cars in the last couple of years. Somehow, from advertising, marketing to, even explain to customers, how do we differentiate ourselves and make it clear, to who we're serving, who we are, and, the ad money that we spend, the things that we're behind, because it's in essence three different dealer groups under one name.
Explain that further to me, right? You have the name, the brand. Is that owned? Like, who owns that? The brand, the name Ourisman. Who owns that?
No one owns the name or the brand, because it's my last name. It's my cousin's last name, and so we all call our stores Ourisman blank of blank, and it's sort of synonymous with who we are as a family. But there is no parent company. There's no one entity or holding company. It's really just a myriad of different Ourisman stores under just different leadership.
So give us an overview for just your size, scale, economics. Like, how many stores are you? How many cars do you sell per year? Service?
Yeah, so I've got 18 stores now in my pod. We're hoping to sell 20,000 new and used cars this year. Pretty big operation. I don't know if I can give you an exact service RO count on top of my head, but we're 8 body shops. So we've been growing that segment of the business as well. So yeah, it's 20,000 is our goal for 2024.
And thinking more about that, right? Clearly a massive operation. What does your team look like?
So my team, I've got a COO, I've got a second floor that consists of, variable ops director, an ops manager, fixed ops director, a full accounting team, a service parts and body, director position, and then each store has their own general manager. So sort of filter through and operate through a second floor through an executive team. And they work directly with the general managers, who then we don't micromanage, don't create vision or culture for them, but we hire and surround ourselves with people who I think fit our culture, fit our vision, and I think do a pretty good job at it.
What's your dad's current involvement in the business? I mean, it seems like you're the CEO today. It seems like he's sort of stepped away. How's that transition been for you?
I'll tell you the story behind it. It's sort of funny. So in 2020, this would have been early March 2020. We all know what was going on in the world then. He was in New Zealand. He has at that point had a girlfriend who lived in New Zealand, so he was over visiting her.
I like your dad already.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude. And a few weeks later, obviously everything went to shit, and he was stuck in New Zealand. And like, New Zealand, if you recall,
I'm retired.
If you call it, it wasn't so much that, it was more, there was an opportunity where I would say we needed a voice within my group, and that voice was, in a different time zone and a 13-hour cycle away from us. I said, you know what? I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And I sort of threw him out, in a loving way, and, got in the chair and started operating through what was an initial, at least in our business, it was a horrible, stressful, 6 weeks, 2 months, and dealing with that. And, eventually it turned out, to be pretty fruitful for our industry. But the first 8 weeks were, as we can all recall, were not pretty. And, so sort of, again, I'll say it in a kind way, sort of threw him out. And so when he came back to the US, I want to say in July, so 4 months later, it's not an exaggeration to say it was a completely remade and different group. and we changed on the fly. And that was sort of the theme of COVID, was adopting and adapting to new ways of doing business and new ways of looking at opportunities, or, the era of Zoom, right? And a lot changed in 4 months. And so sort of stuck with it. And that was, to me, it worked out well for all of us. At this point now, he's the chairman, my group, and he's, to me, incredibly influential for what I do. And it's the sort of the, unique sounding board for someone who has, been through a lot of similar, we'll say, issues or experiences that I may be dealing with. And so I feel very fortunate to have, that relationship, and have someone who's, as a father, mentor, who I can, run ideas by. So
Definitely agree with that. Tell me more about that experience. I mean, you kind of stepped into the role here, opportunistically, right? The world kind of threw you into it, which is great. What were some of those initial changes? Like, what goes through your head, and what do you actually do first 30, 60, 90 days?
I remember first thing we did was sort of, as we started meeting over Zoom and trying to unite a group that I would say was, even the pod that, my pod here, I'd say every store was very independent, operated differently, different strategies, different ways of even accounting, right? And so sort of my initial changes that were made were sort of bringing it together and operating as a dealer group, and not, a bunch of individual dealerships. And so, every different player sort of stepped up and took on new sort of ad lib roles, and promoted some people pretty quickly from GSMs to GMs to sort of get through that time period. But yeah, I would say unity, and I think it was the beginning of this group and my pod sort of moving in the same direction. I don't want to say it's I don't like to say it's becoming corporate or sort of a corporate blanket, but it created one Ourisman Cars. I'll put it that way.
Well, it seems like it worked out. So I want to move into brands a little bit. Again, you have a pretty good pulse here on the economy and on the business, given your scale. Just starting out very broadly, how do you think about your mix of brands today at Ourisman, right? Like, brands that, I mean, we could start with, like, what brands are you bullish on? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think we have a really good mix of brands. So adding Subaru 3 weeks ago, to me now gives us Honda, Subaru, Toyota representation, which it's obviously very, very bullish on those three. We have all the imports. We have Ford, Chrysler, Chevy, Kia, Hyundai, and so I think what also makes my market different is, it's a transient market in DC, but with the federal government, with sort of that overarching, level of employment that it provides, it's a pretty predictable market. And I think it's, and so I know the questions about, brands and what's, what we're bullish on, but I think we're bullish on everything we sell. I know it's such a political answer, but the reality is we have and listen, no one's recession proof. There's no market that's recession proof, but we have been fortunate, sort of as remoras, with the federal government to bank on predictable employment, predictable income, and obviously a lot of interest in the city, and a professional hub. Amazon obviously is come to Northern Virginia in the last couple of years. But to me, to answer sort of more simply into your question, love Toyota, love Honda. Again, new to Subaru, but it's been hot so far, and in our first 3 weeks, it's really been a great addition. We've seen obviously Kia's been on a rise now for 3 or 4 years, to new heights, and So yeah, it's been great to represent more brands. And also over the last 4 years, we've, since we'll go back to my talking about 2020, we've grown quite a bit. We've added 8 stores in 4 years, and so added new franchises. We added Kia, we added Toyota, we added Subaru, and it's been great partnerships.
You mentioned growing the collision business. Tell us more about that, right? I mean, clearly we know that, just a table set, right? Vehicle affordability is at all-time lows. People are holding onto their cars longer than ever. I have to imagine that plays a big part into your thinking here. Technician staffing is still super difficult across the country, right? But give us some of your thought process. Why getting more into the collision business, and why now?
I don't think anyone gets into the automobile dealership business industry you know, to grow body shops. I think it sort of becomes a fantastic revenue center and opportunity that if you have the real estate, you have to have the real estate. If you don't have a place to put a body shop and to build one, you really can't do anything. But if you have what we call, dead space, where maybe you don't need the parking that you have that's available, and you can put a 5,000 foot, 10,000 foot facility and build a body shop. It's predictable, and one thing we talk about often is, with EVs and sort of the questions and uncertainty with how it's going to affect, our service business and parts. And there's a lot of questions that remain, and there's different ways you can look at it. But the reality is, well, I mean, it's the unfortunate reality. People will always crash cars, and you'll always have demand for body work. And whether it's seasonal or whether it's just human nature, it's a predictable revenue center, and if you manage it right and manage it tight, it's very profitable.
Mhm. That makes sense. I think, look, we know service is rising right now, driven by the fact that some of the facts I just mentioned, people simply need to, hold on to the cars longer than ever. But when you think about further out, right, let's not talk about the next 2, 3 years. I mean, when you think about further out and, the EV adoption, does it concern you with respect to service?
It does. It's concerning, and you can read what you want to read, right? And you can read that the dollars per ticket are actually higher on an EV, and so based on this pro forma projection, you'll actually make more money in your service center. Vice versa. You look at, it's not just service work and the income generated from repairing a vehicle. It's maintenance. So, do we make money changing oil? No. But what does it do? It gets someone back into your lane. It gets someone back, to look at a car or consider a car that maybe they wouldn't have. So to me, you're probably losing at least one visit per year, per customer, just from EV adoption and not having the set maintenance, oil change schedules that give you a free lead, and that's what it really is.
That's a very interesting opportunity. I think if I was building collision centers, I would be approaching, and they're probably doing this, right? I'm armchair quarterback in this right now, but I'd be approaching every dealer that has massive space, in these just massive lots and dead space, and saying, hey, like, let's build this. Because you're right, it does totally make sense. There's definitely tailwinds, and I do agree with you that it is, at least one area of the business that realistically will require demand. I think to be devil's advocate, what someone who is very progressive or really believes in the robotaxi vision, right? They would say, oh, well, that's going to be obsolete because these cars will all drive themselves. And, with them driving themselves, we're going to have 50% fewer accidents. And that's, the rest is history. I think we'll save the speculation. I mean, there's clearly lots of different directions.
Well, a lot of ifs involved in that, in that
Yeah,
thought.
exactly.
And
Sort of like a third order effect.
Exactly. And so we didn't get in the body shop and collision world as a hedge against, EVs. It's a profitable and effective way to utilize space if you do it right. But now you look at it, you think about, the direction we could be headed, and it's really nice to have that hedge.
So I want to ask you a bit of a different question. What are you excited about nowadays? Like anything could be, brands, trends, technology. What are you excited about?
Well, I'll start with I got a 1-year-old son that I named after my grandfather, so that's number one, I think, in my excitement list. But other than that activity at home, I would say I think I'm excited. I'm excited for. I think you have brands that have separated themselves from the field, and I'm excited to grow with those particular brands. And I think those manufacturers are making really smart decisions and are generating I think through I don't want to say it's a renewed dealer body, but maybe a more engaged dealer body.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who are we talking about?
So, I think my mind goes to, Toyota, obviously, and that's sort of where I go to first, and I go to, Kia comes to mind, and so to me, I get excited about manufacturers that I think are producing great product, are not committing entirely to one segment of vehicle, that are keeping options open to customers and letting the market demand what it's going to demand, and who have, I think, figured out the right inventory and allocation systems, and have figured out a method that helps dealer profitability, but also it's easy to get excited about those manufacturers, right?
This episode is brought to you by my very own car dealership guy industry job board. CDGjobs.com, my industry job board connecting the best talent in automotive with the best companies, will remain absolutely free for CDG listeners to post and fill available roles at their companies. This free job board is for anyone in automotive: vendors, dealers, lenders, manufacturers, auto tech, everyone. Already, over 100 companies have posted open positions, including Lithia Motors, Recurrent, Credit Acceptance, Veros Credit, Cars Commerce, Shift Digital, Plug, Fullpath, Westlake, Trade Pending. You get the point. The best part is that when these companies hire through cdgjobs.com, they are hiring the most informed candidates in the marketplace. So don't hesitate. You can add your open roles today by visiting cdgjobs.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. That's cdgjobs.com. So I want to ask you on the flip side of that, how are you navigating right now through employee retention at the less exciting brands, right? Like we all know the challenges right now for Stellantis as an example, Chrysler, Jeep, whatever. And I have to imagine that you're an 18 store group, right? I'm your GM or GSM at the Chrysler store. I see what the buddies are doing over there at Toyota. I'm jealous, right? It's a reality. I mean, we all want to make a living. We all want to get a return on our time. How are you navigating through that?
It's funny. We just had let's say we had a general manager opening, and one of our general managers who was running a Chrysler store, put his name in the hat immediately and asked for a transfer opportunity. So just as you said,
that's what I'm here for.
So in that case, we actually did exactly what you're suggesting, but it's a real problem. It's a legitimate issue. I think it's isolated to obviously the variable side, and fixed ops service, they're really not affected by sort of the what's in vogue and what's not in terms of manufacturers. But on the sales side, it's the reality is the most important thing. You talk about work conditions and culture, we talked about earlier, but people go to work to generate income and provide for their families. So if you can, first and foremost, no matter what the circumstances are, provide even compromises to make sure they are earning the income that they're accustomed to, that they need to make to provide for their families, then it just becomes, you're not dealing with financial stress necessarily. You're dealing with, what may be, whether it's boredom or sort of, pessimism about what they're representing. You gotta, That's what we're good at. We're good at making things fun, or we're good at getting creative. And so whether it's, sales spiffs, and, we have our particular issue, we have, we have one model line that we're, I would say, significantly heavy in. And, we've created, a new pay plan just on one model line alone. And, so forget about the grosses that it may generate. It becomes now it's a contest. And
what model line is that?
the Grand Cherokee 4xe. So we have separate pay plans just for that model. We're trying our best to make it exciting to get one of those leads and work a customer, and hopefully,
It's funny you say that, because it's that's the only way to survive and thrive in this business, right? It's down to that molecular level, right? Literally creating a new pay plan for one model line. But like, you got to do what you got to do. You got to get that car.
But it's exciting. Like, all of a sudden you get you got a contest now, and now it's not just earning, extra money, but it's bragging rights. Who can sell X amount of, 4x's in a week, or whatever it may be. And so, well, obviously we have comp plans, and we're strict with how comp plans read and how we pay out, but we also realize there's things that some folks can't control. And when you have that, we write in bonuses often. We'll juice up commissions if they're not sustainable or not realistic. And so we take care of the employee first, and, make sure the financial needs are met. And then we, sort of dive into, having fun with it, and sort of, making chicken salad out of chicken shit. So,
yeah, I think that it's an interesting time, like we mentioned Stellantis, because I'm going to be curious to see how these stores perform over the next 3 to 6 months. And it may just make sense to start really looking at these stores. Like, even if there's a dealer group that's acquisitive and looking to make acquisitions, if these valuations take a meaningful hit, which, to be determined, it will be an interesting opportunity, because things just rebound. This business is cyclical, and the company's not going away. It's going to go through a rough patch here, but it may be an interesting just opportunity for anyone that cannot weather that storm.
Don't get me wrong. When Stellantis is, the highs are pretty high, right? With that manufacturer. So when they're clicking, and when product is priced appropriately, we'll go with that. We'll say we'll look at inflation as a sort of the measure here. But when it makes sense financially for our customers, people love the product. Like, they love it. It's financial.
Yeah. The Jeep brand is especially strong. What's like an operational problem that you wish would be solved, or like maybe just a big problem that you're dealing with, a challenge? Again, 18 stores, there has to be something. What comes to mind?
What's funny, I always use the analogy. It's like I'm playing whack-a-mole every day, right? And so you'll have you'll fix a problem, and then all of a sudden something else pops up, and it's endless. I wish it weren't, but it's sort of a reality. I would say, to me, a lot of what we have is consistent, right? But I think affordability has become the real, affordability and rising costs, to a consumer, but also as a business, is really problematic. And, where as margins approach sort of, pre-COVID days, interest rates certainly, aren't pre-COVID. Floor plan costs are through the roof. And even a cost for, employees. Employees are, it's town pool is, you got to pay to retain great employees. And so as our costs have risen, and margins have, some manufacturers more than others have normalized quicker, it creates a pressure there, and you've got to get creative and find new revenue streams, like again, body shops, for example, we're talking about.
Okay, so let's break it down though. When you say affordability, are you doing anything about it? Like, what's leasing penetration like? Are you leasing more? Are you introducing new programs? Are you sort of just letting the herd go to where the cheaper cars are at? Like, is there any plan for it?
It's ironic, is you would think our market here would be a a high lease penetration market. And we actually had a meeting yesterday. We got 2 Volkswagen stores, and we were going over, lease penetration for, I've got a store here in Rockville, Maryland, which is, it's an import market. It's a liberal market, affluent market. And we lease, I want to say we're 20-ish% lease penetration, which to me is probably
It's low.
it should be it should be 50%. And so it's low. And the comments that were, the first question is like, is it us? Are we not promoting leasing? Do we have a fundamental issue on our side? And you've done some research, and it's, the lease penetration, like in Montgomery County where I am, is, it's low compared to other, and even Volkswagen talking about this, the VP is in there with us yesterday, and you're talking about different metro markets throughout the United States, and this particular, DC, Baltimore market has always had low lease penetration compared to the field, and no one really knows why. That's sort of a long-winded way of answering your question about how do you promote, or how do you deal with affordability issues. To me, it really, you're going to take, you see margin compression, right? So you'll discount more. The factor needs to step up, and obviously, provide more incentives as well. But the result is lower margins. And also I think it's, when interest rates and floor plan was 0, you could order whatever you want to order with minimal risk. And, inventory and that asset has always, for us has, been used cars, right? And it's how do you manage used car inventory, whether it's turn, cost of sale, whatever. But now new car inventory is a new asset base, and it's a very expensive asset, and one that, we don't just approve all that are allocated and take what we're given. We have to be particular and very smart and disciplined with what we're accepting, what price points we're accepting. What models are too expensive for our market, what are too expensive in general.
I want to talk more about that. I want to backpedal for 1 second. Can you explain for those that don't understand, can you explain what you just said about accepting vehicles, like accepting allocation, right? Because I think a lot of people maybe don't realize how the relationship works from the automaker, the manufacturer, to the dealer, right? So walk us through a little bit of that dynamic and that relationship, and what you mean by accepting versus ordering.
So, a given manufacturer will allocate you, let's say, 50 vehicles for your inventory. And, in a world where cars are fast moving and interest rates are near 0, we would typically take all the vehicles that were offered, stock them, inventory them. We'd have minimal flooring costs, so minimal holding costs, and eventually find a home for the vehicle. But now, when we're given 50 cars from manufacturer A, you look at each individual model, and you look at, okay, what's your day supply, per model line? What is your sales history through 90 days on a given model line? What do you project? What do you predict, a model line will do maybe in the summer months? And so you make decisions based on the past, but also how you perform the future. And, is there a facelift coming on this model line that's going to slow down, demand for it? And so there's all different decisions that go into what a general manager ultimately will accept or reject in a given, consensus or allocation. And, for the relationships that you asked about, it's, it typically if you take all, manufacturer's happy. And, and in great times, great. It's great that they're happy. But first and foremost, our responsibility is taking care of our shareholders. And we have to make the best business decisions that we think for our particular operation, and not the general relationship with us and a manufacturer. And, if there's a particular manufacturer that maybe we have a superb relationship with, and they say, hey, Robert, I need you to take these 3, X, Y, Z's, fine. And there's concessions that we will make because of the relationship, but we've really shifted I think our discipline and decision making to be rather scientific and what we're taking on and the liability and the cost that we're taking on.
What's profit like for you for your stores year over year? How have you seen the profit trend?
The profit trend is it's down.
Like how much? How
It's
much?
um, I would say 25%. So definitely, yeah, it's meaningful. It's real money. Yeah, again, to me, it's looking at again, what's controllable, what's market based, and what can we do about it. And so, back to talking about inventory and cost and controllables. We're looking at sort of a new layer now, I think, of KPIs and cost, within our own businesses and sort of holding firm on, you know, whether it's, ad dollars per sale, employee comp per sale. We even have a cap on, stores do spiffs on Saturdays or whatever. They have sort of free reign on that, but we'll monitor that, right? And we'll monitor that over, a month at a time. And we have a hard cap of $25, per delivery as a spiff. And so we sort of, again, controlling what we can control. But yeah, I mean, profitability it continues to normalize. But it's also, that's sort of it's a blanket comment on all the stores. Some are not as affected as others. And again, back to talking about, particular manufacturers that, we're more bullish on or excited about, versus ones where, it becomes more of a day-to-day grind.
So talk to me a little bit about your marketing strategy. I read around a little bit. From what I understood, your group was early in, I want to say, TV advertising back in the day, but marketing in general seems like it runs through your blood.
Yeah. So my grandfather was, it sounds weird to say a pioneer with television advertising because we're all accustomed to it, but he spent a lot of money advertising his Chevrolet store on TV, and they had a jingle.
I'm Googling it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, look it up, and it's one that every Washingtonian could sing, knew, and I still get to this day, if I'm at a restaurant putting my name down and someone recognizes, they'll start singing that jingle, and I think it's that generation is, the majority of car buyers today are not that generation. I'll say that, but it was a phenomenal marketing idea, and when I first got into the business, and when I sold cars, throughout college and whatnot. But when when I became full time out of college, I had a period of time where I was running a Hyundai store, and I did local TV, and that was some markets respond better to it than others, but I did my own commercials, and yeah, I'm putting myself out here for some embarrassment, but some very interesting commercials. And I would say they were very creative. They were original, and I would take on a persona of whether it was like Pokemon or something. It was like Pokemon Go or Pokemon Catch, whatever that game was. And I would take on personas and somehow incorporate car buying into it. And I sort of became a D-list,
I see. Yeah.
local car celebrity doing that. This was before the age of TikTok and Instagram Reels, and now you see creative car commercials seemingly every week, that'll go viral. But I think I was probably about 10 years too early in that phase, and if
Damn,
I'm
dude,
guessing
you were the original
yeah,
creator before creator was a thing.
I'm telling you, man. It's something about wacky commercials and car dealers go hand in hand together, and so I don't know what it is about being goofy and sort of letting your guard down on TV, but it works.
Well, dude, your YouTube videos, man, these are great. So encourage everyone to check these out. So truly,
At my rehearsal dinner before my wedding, I think it was my dad had a sort of a reel played of a handful of these videos trying to embarrass me, but I'd seen so many
Smart.
couldn't get it past me that
Yeah,
point. So
smart dad. I know. Listen, I've also had my fair share of videos that went viral. So
yeah.
I've yeah, I know what you're talking about. This is something that I can really empathize. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you about your outlook for the industry. And of course, my favorite, not I don't say favorite question because it's it's not the most positive, but I already asked you about what you're excited about. So I think we can balance it out with, does anything keep you up at night nowadays? Or what keeps you up at night, if anything?
Everything, actually. So everything keeps me up. I think, again, back to, anecdote. I have a 1-year-old, so that keeps me up as well. But other than that, it's the day to day uncertainty that we live in and sort of what has become a stagflation economy, right? And, we've got, we've grown quite a bit over, the last couple of years. And, we have, we've got to perform, and it's up to, our executive team here and decisions we make, um, to make the right decisions. And, it's those keep me up at night. And I don't second guess myself. I don't second guess decisions, but I think it weighs on me. And I'm obsessed with winning, and I'm obsessed with generating and making and growing, this group into, what I consider to be a, large group now. And, eventually, you know, uh, bigger. I don't want to give you a number, but thinking about ways to grow without compromising what you have today. And I think that keeps me up. Um, but yeah, I think the industry, it's a resilient industry. They always call us cockroaches. You can't kill us in what we do. But it's definitely more competitive, and it's harder. And we have public companies now who are making their presence felt, obviously in nationwide, but also in the DC area. And the last few months, you've seen some of those transactions, and they have it changes our landscape too, and it changes. There's certain there's certain cost advantages that they have that we don't have, and we have to overcome it. So we have to be that much better and more focused, to not just compete but to win. And I think about growing and opportunities that come down the line. It's there's opportunities that are you know big dealer groups that are more appropriate for a public company. Then there's sort of the I would say sort of the mezzanine type deal that we like to fit in and look for. Um, so yeah, I just think it's survival of the fittest, as it always has been, always will be. But I couldn't be more confident in the team that we have and things that we're doing. But no matter what, I don't sleep so well. So even in the best of times, so
I
there's
hear
always
you,
there's
dude.
always more there's always more that we can be doing, and it's recognizing what it is.
Robert, I guess what I want to wrap up with your outlook really for the industry as you think about the next 12 months, 12 to 24 months, right? What are you thinking about? What are those opportunities, and what's your outlook for the industry?
My outlook is positive, right? Again, I think we call it normalization, but what does that really mean? It's just every moment of time is a new normal. And so I'm optimistic because I believe what the last couple of years have shown us and shown consumers is the necessity for our services, retail and literal service, right? And so I think that was a major threat. I think our viability, longevity was under attack in a lot of ways, before the COVID era. And so it's good that I feel that we are past that now at this point. I think now what we're dealing with is political decisions. And without getting into the EV sort of conversation and that sort of direction and maybe forced demands. Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I wouldn't want to grow. I wouldn't want to expand our footprint if I wasn't optimistic. And, yeah, to me, it's, again, to get into a new state and to look at new opportunities in different markets, it sort of shows where my head's at. And my optimism and, you know, and what we provide. And that's first and foremost. If you believe in that and you put your heart and soul into it, you'll be successful.
Robert Ourisman, thanks for coming on the CDG podcast. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.